And so Reggie's thing was like, I don't have like work and life. I have life with people. So there's two ways to kind of succeed. You can do lots of what you do for just, this rotating door of people, or you can really begin to invest personally in the people who you work with and the people you work for, to where they know they're getting, like, I'm hiring more than a composer or an editor or a shooter or a DP or a set designer or whatever. Like I'm really partnering in this endeavor with someone I care about and someone who I know cares about me and who cares about more than the project. And I was a little spoiled in this regard. Like I said, I just feel like I've fallen up the stairs my whole life. My first real boss, when I was in my 20s, and it was when I went to work with my best friend, our boss was a guy, his name was Dick White, and he changed my life. And it was because he was my boss, but he was more interested in my character and in who I was as a person than he was in what I did. I mean, he cared very much about what I did. Sure. But he was quick to say, yeah, you're doing a great job. That's all good. But this over here, I think this is going to be a problem. It's all about relationships. It doesn't matter if it's business or relationships or money or whatever. It is all about relationships. So you take care of your relationships. If your relationships are solid, you're going to be successful. And that was his whole thing. And at first I was just like, why is this guy being such a hard case? He's giving me a hard time about everything and he's on me and blah, blah, blah. He was just experiencing a very immature, 20-something kid who was a newlywed who, just got like beyond his dream job, who hadn't really worked that hard to do, he was just with this very immature kid and he was inviting me to be mature. And the way that hit me was like, oh, he doesn't like me. He doesn't. And about 6 months later, I was like, oh no, this guy actually loves me enough to speak to these things over here, not just define me by this skill set that I apply to his projects. And that would become a voice that I learned pretty early on. It's really hard to do life well without that kind of voice in your life. And so after I left there, I still kept up with Dick, but we didn't see each other, certainly not daily or weekly. And that's when I figured out that I needed that voice in my life. I just kind of I was feeling a little aimless, a little wandering, and not just professionally, but like I just felt a little ungrounded. And I just reached out to an older man, the guy's about 10 years ahead of me. And I said, hey, I really need a mentor. I need somebody I can walk through this season of life with. My kids are young. My business is hitting a real different footing right now. And I'm trying to figure that all out. And I wasn't asking him to do it because I knew he was a very in-demand, very busy guy. But I really did just want his advice. If I wanted him to be my mentor, I would have just said, can you be my mentor? Sure. But I just told him I'm looking for a mentor. And he referred me to a man named Reggie Campbell. And Reggie Campbell was another one of those guys who changed my life and gave me new perspective on work-life balance. He has a very famous thing. He's like, I don't believe in work-life balance.
Seriously, can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure.
You guys got to hear this. So it's a dime a dozen, right? What do I do? What do you do about work-life balance? Work-life balance. I have met personally some of the largest directors and DPs from Hollywood, and asked them point blank when the speech is over, when the cameras are off, et cetera, said, hey, you're obviously extremely busy. There's this industry, it demands a lot of you. There's so much going on. And I know this is true outside of Hollywood. As creatives, like we pour ourselves into our craft and we lose ourselves in it. Often
Absolutely.
We wake up one day and we've lost everything else we care about and we've just chased this notoriety. And then we sit back and go, what do we do about work-life balance? It's so easy to say that, but what was Reggie's take on it?
Yeah, Reggie said that he doesn't believe in work-life balance, and backing up from that a little bit. One of the things about especially creative jobs, man, it's really a thing, is when you find your niche, when you find your stride, and you find that element that you do really well, whether it's directing or producing or shooting or composing or whatever it is, whatever, especially creative, but you see this in businessmen as well. We talk about all these, people's addictions to alcohol and drugs and porn and all this stuff, but we never talk about the addiction to competence. And this is where work-life balance gets weird, because if you're great at what you do, then you know how it feels to be great at what you do. But the thing is, when you become a husband and when you become a father, I mean, yes, we read books maybe, and maybe some older men gave us some really good talks about what it means to be a husband and a father. But there's a whole aspect that you just cannot know until you are in it. And newsflash, no one starts out as a husband with competency. Nobody starts out as a father with competency. You start with, even if you've read all the books and been to all the seminars and all this stuff, you're starting at 2. You're not starting at like 75% competency.
Yeah.
You're starting at 2. And so what happens, a lot of times, just when you look at age and stage of life and that kind of thing, our professional careers and our families they're all sort of like coming into this sweet spot I won't say sweet spot. They're coming of age around the same time. Like, when your kids are in elementary school, middle school, like that's kind of when you're really hitting your stride a lot of times. Professionally, when you're in your late 30s, maybe, or your early 40s, like that's when things are really cooking. Well, that's when things also get really scary with your kids, where they're asking you questions you don't have a quick answer for, where you're watching them become their own people.
No longer your subconscious is handling the...
No.
It's almost like when you have those young kids, it's almost like task management in a sense. Like change the diaper, feed them, put them down, burp them, make sure that it's like da-da-da-da-da-da. Right. And then all of a sudden it's like, Daddy, what is blah, blah, blah? Or what do we do about, or I feel this,
Or you watch your kids start to withdraw or whatever, and as they move into adolescence, so here's the two things: competence and control. When I'm at work, when I'm good at what I do, especially when it's creative and it's just fun, and when you look at it and people go ooh and on, it's like, it's so amazing, it looks so cool, it sounds amazing. Yeah. There's just all of those, like all that dopamine rush. Exactly.
We live for those words of affirmation.
I'm competent and I'm in control. I'm valuable.
I'm worthy.
And this is where my identity is. And so you're getting all that just gush of stuff. And it's like, I can control this. I know how it works. And it's over here, it's like,
this mess.
I can't control this kid. Like I could until now, and now I can't. And I don't know what to do. Or things get sideways in your marriage, and it's like, I don't know what to do. And it's like your choice starts to become, it's this little, it's not blatant, but it's just the way we're wired as humans. Like give me the dopamine. Like, give me competence, give me control, where I can and that's where I find my identity, and I lose my identity over here. And Reggie's thing is like, it's not, my work day is not my 9 to work doesn't get this block, and then family gets this block, and God gets this block. He's like, I am walking through the day with my Father, and I do what He tells me to do. And if my wife and kids fly into the middle of my workday with something that needs to be handled, am I going to tell them, yeah, wait? No, I'm going to deal with it. I do a really good job at work. Like, I'm going to do my best for my employer or for my client or whatever you want to call it, however that is framed for you. I'm going to do my best for my client. At the end of my life, the thing that is really important to me is I want to be married to this lady. I want to be these kids' father, and I want to have really been their father. I don't want to be the guy who's married to their mom, or the guy who brought me into the world, or the guy who pays my rent when I'm short on cash. I want to be their father. And probably the only thing in my life of falling up the stairs, the only thing I ever got a vision for being intentional about early on was being a husband and a father. And you don't make it in that game without mentors and really deep friendship. You just don't make it. I'm convinced. I have yet to meet a guy who's an exemplary husband and father, who cannot tell you about the 3 or 4 men at the really crucial phases of his life. And so Reggie's thing was like, I don't have like work and life. I have life with people. And I have life with people at work, and I have life with people at home. And sometimes those lines intersect. And when I'm handling that well, my wife's not going to lose her mind if I take a 5-minute call. I almost never do. So she knows that when I do, that I really need to, and that it won't be long, because I have laid that groundwork. And when I'm over here at work and something blows up at home that I need to address, they know that I'm going to address that, because they know that's who I am. And so it's not this finding the point.
It's not a seesaw.
No.
It's a yes or no.
Absolutely.
Like, am I doing the honoring thing?
Yeah.
By this way that I live my
absolutely.
life.
And it sounds so much mushier and kind of miasmic and whatever, but it's simpler, and it's a lot more gratifying. Really is. And I love the people I work with. People who work with me can't work with me very long before they sort of figure out who I am over here, and vice versa. And my family knows about my clients. They know about the projects I'm working on. They'll, get involved. They'll ask me things. It's a ball.
So I've often wondered this, like, how do you find a mentor, right? Like, just go to mentors.com. Like, so what would be your advice for people or whether, men or women or whoever is watching, to find that mentor, to find that person that they can trust and that can speak into their life and so forth? I mean,
just ask. Simplest thing to understand, hardest thing to do. To go to a man who's, my thing is somebody who's 8 to 12 years ahead of you, close enough to not be cynical about your stage, because
it has to have been through the stage that you're in, right?
Absolutely.
Obviously, you don't want to go with the 50-year-old
single guy who's
never had a kid, who just thinks that work 24/7 is the way to do it.
Right. But you just ask. Like, find someone who is where you want to be. Find someone whose life you genuinely admire and respect, and say, hey, can I take you out to coffee once a month, once a quarter? I mean, like, I will be as low maintenance. Whatever you have available is all I'm asking for. And but just ask. And I mean, you'll be amazed. You may ask somebody you think is 10 times too busy, to go have coffee with you once a month or once every 6 weeks or whatever. And they might be, but they might not. And if you don't ask, you won't know. And like in my case, I knew the person I was asking had, his calendar's full for 3 years, but I knew that he knew somebody and changed my life.
Wow. That's amazing.